All right, so you may soon have to rethink your handy-dandy carry-on bag.
The International Trade Group is suggesting major airlines shrink the minimum size. And that new recommendation is much smaller than what many people carry on now. Travel expert Mark Murphy is here to explain how this might impact your travel. Mark, thanks for being with us.
Thanks.
So what exactly is the IATA suggesting?
They're suggesting that they shrink the overall bag size to get more bags above the seats. And the challenge with that is everyone's already bought their luggage. It already qualifies under the current guidelines. So what's going to happen to these passengers? Do they have to go out and now buy a bunch of new luggage? Is that the new airline fee, new luggage?
Right.
So why do they think this is going to benefit travelers?
Well, they think it's going to basically allow them to board people faster, get more bags in the overhead, which they're going to sell, in my opinion, as a way to save on bag fees. But then go back to the law of unintended consequences with bag fees. You impose them. What do people do? They turn around and carry the kitchen sink on.
That's right. That's the thing. People are already paying bag fees to check in their luggage, and so that is forcing people to carry more on into the overhead bin. But the reality is, and this is what I think a lot of consumers probably are suspicious to and why they think this is silly, you know, if the airlines, for example, the manufacturers of those airplanes could make the overhead bins a little larger. They could maybe give us a little bit more legroom. They choose to configure the planes this way. They choose to configure the planes with this number of seats, which makes it much more difficult to board an aircraft than it did 10 years ago.
You're right. And the aisles are narrower, and you're talking about some cases 17 inches wide on a seat. Look at the average American. How are they even going to fit these days? Sometimes they have to buy 2 seats. So yeah, it's a real problem. And the fact that in the U.S. over 80% of all air traffic is controlled by 4 major carriers means if one does something that benefits that one financially, everybody else follows.
So
everybody.
How about the manufacturers of luggage? Do they actually make this size bag right now?
I think they're bribing the airlines and IATA to do this because, I mean, think about it. It's a boon for Toomey and Samsonite and all these other guys because they will come out with the size that fits. Now, when you fly internationally, there's a different size for international versus domestic. So they're already configured the smaller bags for some of these international carriers. I think that's what they're trying to get down to. But again, it's going to put the onus on the consumer to spend more money.
Right, to go out and buy these these pieces of luggage that are...
That don't carry anything.
Let
me just speak for all women out there.
Compliant.
Yeah, they're compliant.
And
then I actually think that it probably will lead to more delays in boarding because some people won't have
the right size,
luggage,
and then you got to recheck it, and then you're going to have delays.
People are going to complain and argue with the flight attendants. They're going to try to stick it up there. They're not going to be able to get it.
And what are we going to get?
Shoving it in.
Air rage.
Air rage. Air rage. That'll be our next headline.
That's exactly right.
We've had that so many times. Think about the knee defender, that whole story last summer, right? Where people weren't able to recline their seats. So everyone's so frustrated with air travel. So what happens is things run in cycles. So what's going to take place? I think you're going to find a pushback from the consumer. Eventually, the airlines are going to stop doing some of these things. And you saw the Southwest fare sale last week. Some of the other carriers are matching because they're increasing capacity. There are more seats, and the demand isn't going to keep up with that capacity, which means prices are going to fall a little bit this summer. So you're already seeing it, and the airline stocks have been hammered, right? They've gotten hammered because of the concern about profitability, because at the margin, they're basically going to sell some cheaper seats.
No, I, for one, would like to go back to the golden age of travel when we traveled by steamship. That way, slow everything down, slow the entire world down. Let's just travel. Let's just take 2 weeks to get to London before, you know, everything will be easier.
The cruise lines would like that.
Yeah, right.
Travel expert Mark Murphy, thanks so much for coming by. Appreciate it.